and the Utah makes you wait 3 months while the state kind of decides whether they're going to grant you, leave to do what you want with your life. And incidentally, that was kind of a foundational thing for me. It's like, well, wait a minute, there's these organizations and they kind of tell you what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. I'm like, well, shouldn't you determine that internally, or just two people, like as Mormons? I mean, Tammy and I, to get married, there were like all these other people involved, permission slips and interviews. And I was just like, well, wouldn't we just talk it out together? We did that too. But, we were in our early 20s and dumb and with no context whatsoever. I know this is like cutting off the top of my head. Just thought it'd be better, to see what I'm doing rather than, just not be able to be involved. So anyway, yeah, we have an amazing divorce agreement, because when you get divorced, you can either, if one person's the petitioner who's saying, I want, is going to the state and saying, please split us up. And the other person is the respondent. So if the respondent says, so the petitioner says, I want a divorce, here's how I want it. You actually make like a little contract. And if the respondent says, hey, no way, then you got to either work it out or you got to go before a judge. Now, if you go before a judge, the judge could decide. He could just rule things. So here's another person. So that's what happened when you signed your marriage certificate. You said, hey, if we ever decide to split up, by all means, state and judges and lawyers, jump into the mix, And maybe there's a reason for that. I'm sure in some cases that's actually helpful, And so, but we got along and talked about it and have what's called a stipulated divorce, which is that we agreed on everything. So then the state kind of just has to go along with it. And there's more than even that. You have to actually get along. So I'd say if you're divorced with somebody, you still got to put effort into that relationship. And you might just be like, so freaking bitter. I hate her or him. And I'm like, yeah, but you should put that aside. And because especially if there's kids involved, put those feelings aside. Just keep them to yourself. Pick a buddy to go vent on, if you must. Not a fan of venting, by the way. But maintain that relationship as good as you can, because that's really gonna pay off. So Tammy and I have gotten along really well, and have a great divorce decree that makes sense. And we worked on it. We worked on it for many months, and that's what my lawyers told me. They were like, you know what? If you do this right now, this is gonna save you a lot of hassle in the future. Because you won't have to fight it out over anything. You'll actually, the paperwork will be good, and then of course, like I'm saying, the relationship needs to be good, and so in the lead up in 2014, it was kind of scary. I was very distracted. Summer of 2014 was like it was a little scary, because I didn't know what the future would hold. I didn't, obviously I didn't have another woman lined up. I just, was wondering how it would pan out. I didn't know. And it's still kind of in flux, And so the state of Utah makes you wait 3 months, and then the divorce was final. So I moved down to the studio in, I think it was very early January of this year, actually. And because, I couldn't afford to have my own place. And I wanted to funnel the maximum amount of money to the homestead, because I still, I still have. I have very strong feelings, of, support for my family. And by the way, I only live 6 minutes away from my former home. Well, and the thing is, it's like, this is a very personal thing. And there's a lot of voices out there that are just like, stick it through no matter what. And I heard a few of those in the run-up. But the fact is, while I was thinking about this all the way up through like March 2014, I didn't talk to anybody about it. Not a single person knew that I was thinking about this. I did everything internally. And then I talked to one person, but not to get that person's opinion, but to just hear myself say it all out loud to another person. And once I did, I was like, right, okay, this is all ever so clear. I'm not crazy. And since then, I gotta tell you, every single thing that I suspected and how I thought it would be has come about. I'm like, yep, it was right. I'm not crazy. It took about 6 months. Even Tammy, we sat down one day and it was, I can't remember the exact words, but it was like, you know what? This was the right thing to do. And, it's just like, well, are you gonna, how much are, not you, how much am I going to look to the long-term situation? Well, and a lot of it still hasn't played out. The kids still have, they're still wrapping their heads around it, a year later. Of course, I'm available to them. That's part of our awesome decree is unlimited visitation, which means the kids can come see me anytime they want. Like legally, nothing can prevent that from happening unless they are like on a vacation out of state. They can't just be like, fly me home to see dad right now. But, under reasonable circumstances, they can come and be with me. At a pretty young age, they can choose to live with either me or their mom, And so, well, and like I said, it's a very personal thing. I felt like I should talk about it for a while now, because I think, in fact, I know some of the fans are going through the same thing. And so, oh yeah, then we're going to talk about dating. Awesome. And so I've since had to, get to a place where I can explain this in a short period of time. And you know what, before I talk about that, I want to go back to January of this year. So January of this year, I have no place to stay except the studio. There's a couch here, so I just started at night, after everyone went home, I would just sleep on the couch. And the first night was so creepy and dark and weird, and it's just really weird to be by myself, and because I'd never had that before. Ugh, I gotta get these little weird nubbins off of here. So, yeah, a dead of winter. And the thing is, downtown Spanish Fork, like in this giant building, this building's like 8,000, 9,000 square feet, And now that the artists work at home, I have run of the place. This is my home too. And downtown Spanish Fork, all the shops close up, so there's a buffer around the studio of all these empty buildings, completely empty. Not a heartbeat, around. And the place is muffled. Like this is so quiet. And so I learned to be on my own, kind of camping out. And I learned to like being by myself. And I mean, not like it more than being with other people, but to balance that more, to really understand who I was. And it's been really great. So 2015, that's this year, I've dated a lot. And I mean, yeah, it's as much as humanly possible. With the benefit of hindsight, I probably would have lived everything more conservatively in terms of, you know, the the flow of the studio and projects and stuff like that. Like right now, the project load is lighter than it's been in a long time, which is good. That means turnaround is better, personal attention is better. You know, I've got some projects that are, you know, kind of log jamming the system, but for the most part, things are going through very, very quickly. And for me, this Bretonian army was really a big deal to get that done. Like, bring in, you know, take some of the veterans, like some of the existing things, but repollinate it in a group of very talented individuals. Like, and it's funny because I say, you know, that they're, you know, here's a new painter. They're not new. They've got like a fine arts degree. They have this giant pile of things that they painted. And I look for brushwork too. Like, you got to be able to actually do this. And, you know, so I look for talent. I look for skill. I'm really, a lot of times, and I don't know why, because sometimes, you know, that bucket comes out of the well dry, but this is one of those times where it's just like, I can't, it's like a fire hose of talent coming in here to apply, to paint these miniatures. It's really, really fantastic. And I got to tell you, the crew that's worked with me on this has been, I have not seen such work ethic in my life. It's just, it's through the roof what this team has accomplished. And like, they're ready for the, in fact, sitting right here, I have the next project ready. It's out, they're ready, they're excited for it. So I'm shifting things up in my life. I'm shifting things up with the studio. I feel better than ever inside. I feel so good. I feel at peace. I used to kind of just worry, things bug me. And now it's like life has become so soft. It's just feels so good. I feel good all the time, you know, and my relationships are just like, they're easy. They're going smoothly. Things make more sense. Oh, it's fantastic. So all that reading and all that, you know, those positive mental exercises that I've done have paid off in the form of a really much improved mental state. Like, I am not the man I was 4 years ago, and thank goodness. Feels great. So, yeah, there have been some weird moments, you know. Obviously, Tammy and I meet once a week to go over like things with the kids and, you know, kind of catch up with each other. And that is so good. If you end up being divorced, guy, if you can get that, you know, maintain that relationship. And you gotta set aside, because you know what? There's things that I have not blurted out. And it's like, you know what? Yeah, you be polite. Just be polite and keep a lot of that crap to yourself. And you know what? Maybe in the end it won't even matter. Like, all of that will just dissolve. As the paint dries on my brush. Don't ruin the brushes, artist. Sometimes I come in and the artist station has like brushes sitting in the water. I'm like, no, it messes the wood up. So let's see here. So professionally, I'm going to talk about the studio and stuff too. Oh, and I'm in better shape than I've ever been. Made a workout routine, got a personal trainer about 1.5 years ago to show me how to do everything. Now I just do all homebrew. I'd like to get to a point where, you know, my schedule, you know, and this is my life, guys. The studio, this is what I'm doing. You know, I can't get down to the gym to do, I crank this. But I do work out once or twice a week. I'd like to get it back up to 6 times a week. Yeah, I used to do 30 to 60 minutes 6 times a week last year. It was great. Sometimes 7 times a week. Like, every day I'm like, Every day I'm going to do something. I'm going to do one of these things. And it was great. Boy, I could just feel it in my whole body. And as you guys know, I ate terribly for many years, you know. Remember that episode with Sarah back in the badger hole where I take like the big old spoonful of tapioca pudding, stick it in my mouth? Oh yeah, it was a slob. But now I've kind of getting myself together. Several years now, you know, at least 2.5 years I've been working on the inner part for June 2012 marks. So 13, 14, 15, 3 years, yeah. So there's that. And there have been some times that were pretty rough. But the thing is, because I've been presented with this idea, which is that if it's like, it doesn't matter, how do I explain this? I'm gently working my mental state to be inward rather than outward. So it's like, I'm not like, okay, if this list of things outside of me is happening, then I'll be happy. And boy, if other people's behavior is on that list, man, you are in trouble, because that's the one thing you can't control. You can't do it. But if I do that, if I'm like, okay, you know, if these people are doing these things, then I'm happy. Well, what's the next logical thing? Oh, now I got to control those people. It's like, well, you can't. You can't. And you can be miserable, you can cajole, you can criticize, you can threaten. None of that works in the end. It's like, it's all got to come. And so the theory is that once I find my center, that's where the real power comes from. Not power to, like, you know, wrangle other humans or situations, but like a sort of a calm, centered influence. And that's what I feel happening in my life. You know, I let go a lot of things, and like, I'm good with how things are going. And it's just today I was like, you know what? People ask me, so Sean, how are things? How are you doing? And I'm like, what's a good answer to that? Because I don't want to, if things aren't right, you know, or how I want them, then, you know, you can't just say, well, they're going terrible, you know, because how are you is mostly a greeting. But then I think, okay, well, but what if my assumption is wrong? What if everything actually is okay the way that it is? And it's really just me. If I just rotate my perception, everything will be great. Like a mental jujitsu master. Just let the force of that person go right past you and onto the floor. And so, so my answer now is, how else? How else could it go? It's going great. Everything's going great. It's always great. Everything's okay. Everything's okay the way that it is. I just need to understand it. So, yeah, there's been a couple of times where I'm like, okay. So, like, one day I go home, I have my because I have 2 little kids, and then I have 2 teenagers. And the little kids aren't so little. They're 6 and 10. Very, very independent and spirited. Wonderful. Just love them. And so I'm taking them home, and, you know, at this time, like earlier this year, I would still go and, you know, take a shower at home because I don't have my own place, and there's no hot water here at the studio. So we've never needed it. So anyway, so I get there, and the kids are getting out of the car, and as they go inside, I'm like, oh, there's some other dude in my kitchen, you know? And I'm like, all right, well, you knew this day would come, Sean. You knew this was part of it. And so out comes Tammy, and she's like, you know, here's your shower stuff. And I was like, oh, wow. So I go back to the studio, and I'm taking an ice cold shower out of a hose in the basement. And so for one, I'm used to this, had some of that in South America, and I also grew up in Southern Oregon. So your hose shower is no stranger to Sean. And it was I think beginning of summertime. Yeah, must have been pretty good weather. And so it was funny though, because I'm looking and I'm like going, okay, Sean, this is an external item. This is something that's happening outside of you. And for me, it was a great victory because the next day I did the same thing. And it was like, I felt like $1,000,000. I felt awesome. I felt great. And I'm like, this is good. Because for me, it's like the attitude of what's going on inside. Like, how do I... There we go. Oh, that's a little better. I should have been doing that the whole time. So the attitude of, what's going on inside, that's the important thing. How do I feel? I've got a great mentor now, on again, off again, but every time she just says, Sean, how are you feeling? How's your vibration? What's going on? And it's like, oh, how do I feel? It's like, oh, all those years I felt worried, scared, there's kind of this undercurrent of, fretting, worrisome, playing out scenarios in my head. And I'm like, and I don't feel like that anymore. So I'm like, you know what? Yeah, this is okay. This is okay how things are going. And so there you go. That's my life. And this is a wonderful time of my life. I think I'm going to look back on it very, very fondly. I say wonderful, but I should say meaningful. It's a meaningful time of life. It's really good. Where I'm like like everything's kind of rotating inside and shifting into something like almost like gears are kind of locking into place for a more powerful mode of travel. Well, anyway, let's get back to basing these guys, shall we? All right. So anyway, okay, how am I coming? Yeah, probably only about 40 more guys to go. Oh, I got to do snow basing on these guys. That's really the hardest type of basing to do. And I'm going to do a lot of basing tonight too. So let's talk about the studio. So I've got 70 projects. Everything's on track for them. I have some major ones where I'm still trying to, get them through. This year I probably had 12 major projects to work through that have been kind of a horse pill to get them through the system. And because